Welcome to Brand Builders TV. Deep dive topics, tools and resources brought to you by global thought leaders from within the Brand Builders Club. This show gives you access to the strategies that you can use to move forward with ease and flow in every area of your life and business. In today's show, Philippa is going to share with you how to integrate these essential steps and strategies into your daily life. This is part 4 of a 4-part series to take you from grief to gratitude. Learn it, model it, and get shit done. Let's go.
Hello and welcome back to Brand Builders TV. My name is Philippa Bennett, otherwise known as the Wellbeing Gardener, planting the seeds of joy and gratitude. And I'm back with you again for this 4th and final part in this 4-part series entitled From Grief to Gratitude. Now, I can't believe that this last 4 weeks has gone so quickly. I can't believe I'm at the 4th and final part already. And in this part today, we're going to be looking at how to integrate the strategies that I've introduced through this series into your daily life. Now, just to recap very briefly on what we covered in the other 3 parts. So in part number 1, we had a look at where you are now, because you can't really identify where how far you've come if you don't look back and see where you started. So in part 1, we had a look at where you are now, and we had a look at the 4 main areas of life. There are other areas of life that are important to look at, but just for the purposes of this series, we looked at the 4 main areas, which are livelihood, financial, relationships, and health. I've forgotten the 4th one then. And we had a look at where you are in those 4 life structures. Then in part 2, we started to have a look at some strategies to incorporate, to have a look to see how you start to move up what we call the emotional scale, which was what we said. So we have joy, appreciation, love and empowerment, freedom at the top. And down the bottom, we've got those horrible, nasty emotions of fear, grief, depression, despair and powerlessness. And we had a look at some very simple, very easy strategies to help you to move up that emotional scale. And to accompany those strategies, we have a look at one in the video, but I have another 3 which you can get in the download. There's a link to it in the video above or below this video as it is now. And then in part 3, we had a look at, it was called letting it flow. So we had a look at how to allow those strategies, how to incorporate those strategies to help those to flow through your life, to help you to allow those more positive emotions to flow through you and to flow into your life. And today we're going to be looking at how to integrate those strategies and everything that we learned in the first 3 sessions into your daily life to propel you forward to a better life and to better feeling emotions. Now, this is all about, and it goes without saying, that when we're trying to incorporate new strategies, new learning, new personal development into our life, we need to form habits. Now, what is a habit? A habit, everybody knows, is something you basically do on an automatic basis. You know, we all get up in the morning and brush our teeth. That's a habit that we've learned from before we can even remember. If you drive a car, you know, you don't really think about if you turn the indicator on to turn left or right or to change gear. It's something that's very ingrained, it's habitual, you don't have to think about it. And that's what we're basically looking at trying to do in this course, in this program, and in the course that I offer that expands on this program. That's what we're trying to do, is to incorporate these strategies and systems and processes so that they become habitual. And what that means is that when you've basically retrained your subconscious mind, not your conscious mind, because consciously we can choose consciously to think a certain way, but when your subconscious mind, so that knee-jerk reaction to a situation, if that's trained in a certain way to react a certain way, in a positive way to an adverse situation, then that's what we're really aiming for. Now, habits, everybody has heard the word habit, everybody knows what habits mean, but how long does it take to form a habit? Now, you might have heard different sources say different things. Generally, you kind of read, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to form a habit. But actually, the science, the research that's been done actually says the average time to form a habit, to form a new habit, is actually 66 days. So that's just a little over 2 months. The minimum, obviously there's a minimum and a maximum, because this is, you know, that's just the average. So it could be, some people manage to do it within 3 weeks. Some people it takes up to 250 days. So just the average is about 2 months. So most people are generally pretty average. So you can pretty much say that if you're going to be doing this work, you need to be doing it on a consistent basis for about 60 days in order to start to retrain your subconscious mind to be able to absorb and for this stuff to become habitual. Okay, now if you followed what I've been doing in the first 3 sessions, if you have been doing the work, you might have noticed that things have started to change. You might have noticed that actually maybe not all positive things have started to happen. It could be that actually all hell's broken loose and things have gone wrong. Maybe the car broke down, or you had a bill that came in, or maybe a relationship has ended. That's really a really common thing that actually happens when we start to do this work, because by doing this work you're calming your autonomic nervous system, you're calming your mind, and you're allowing better things to come into your life. And by allowing better things to come into your life, by allowing your vibration to rise, that might actually mean that some of the things that don't serve you, some of the things that possibly aren't the best for you, they start to drop away. So it's very common actually that when you start to do this work, your life seems like it's going wrong, but it's trusting in the process that everything is actually working out for the good. Everything is working out for you. Okay. What's also really important with this work is recognizing what we call aha moments. Now, what's an aha moment? An aha moment is basically where, you know, you're doing the work, you're doing the focus work, you're doing the strategies, you're moving up the emotional scale, and you realize something quite suddenly, and you think, you know what, I never thought of it like that before. That's an aha moment. And they tend to come very often when we go into meditative practice. So if you are someone who wants to start, or you have started a meditative practice, and that could be meditation itself, it could be focused breathing, it could be yoga, it could be anything like that where you're focusing the mind, you've probably had an aha moment already. And in this work, it's actually quite important to recognize those aha moments. And actually, I think as well, it's also important to note down the situation that was occurring, or what you were doing at the time that you had that aha moment. And the reason for that is that everybody is different. Everybody is so different that for one person, meditation might be the absolute perfect thing to do. For others, it might not be. Lots of people feel already that they cannot meditate and then get frustrated because they feel like they're doing it wrong. But let's say, for example, you're sitting at home and you're cleaning the windows, or you're doing the ironing, or you're maybe doing the dishes, something where you're actually not consciously but probably subconsciously have a clear mind because you're focusing on what you're doing. That actually might just be enough for you to get that aha moment. I've got a couple of comments coming up. Who's that? Lovely space where you are. Yes. Hi, Fiona. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, exactly. The aha moments. It doesn't matter where you are and what you're doing, but it could be just your perfect space for you to get those aha moments. So it's important for you to note those down, because possibly your meditation might be standing there doing the ironing, and that is perfectly fine. What's Fiona saying here? Sometimes aha moments when sewing. Yes, perfect example. Thank you, Fiona. Exactly that. I know my mum has aha moments when she's knitting, because she knits quite avidly in the winter time when there's not much to do, and it's you have to concentrate and you have to focus very hard on what you're doing, and that gives the mind the space to get those aha moments. It's important. Okay. So I just want to touch on, I will come back to this, but I just want to bring this into play at this point, because we're talking about habits, and I want to bring in the concept of atomic habits. Now, tell me in the comments if you've heard of atomic habits. I can't claim to have invented this name. It's actually, there's a really fantastic book by a gentleman called James Clear, and he's written a book about basically where if you want to form new habits, there's no point basically throwing in everything you want to do in one day and expecting yourself to be able to do it. And what's Fiona saying here? It's my tune out time when I'm in the flow. Yes, fantastic. And I know with Fiona has a very busy schedule, so I know that she needs that time out as well. And she's very, very good at sewing. Just give her a plug there. So talking about atomic habits, these are basically where you're, you know, as the name says, atomic, very small, and it's basically forming habits very incrementally, very small incremental levels of forming new habits. And as I said, we will get back to that further on in the next half an hour. Okay. In relation to that as well is, what's Fiona saying? I've heard of atomic habits, tell me more. We will get back to that, Fiona, I promise. Near the end of the half an hour, I will go into that in more detail. So having a look at that and also incorporating into that is also observing yourself. Now this can be quite tough because being objective about ourselves can be quite difficult, but this is actually very, very important when we're doing this work, is the ability to perhaps, you know, to put it in a kind of a practical description, to sort of leave your body, not literally, but to sort of take yourself on the outskirts of the situation and look inwards and say, you know, what is my reaction in this situation? How am I dealing with this situation? How could I change the way I'm dealing with this situation? Quite often when we pose questions about a situation, we often get the answer straight away, because, you know, you ask a question, you get the answer, and that answer usually comes obviously into our own heads, but that's generally it's an answer from the universe, if you like, from the collective consciousness soup that's whirring around us as we live in this world. So observing yourself is very important, observing the way that you react to situations. Now moving on from that, we'll just skip back now to part 1 to incorporate that and to say these 4 life structures that we looked at: health, relationships, livelihood and finance. It's important to review those as well on a regular basis. So what that basically means is when you're doing this work, when you're going through the strategies, when you're going through the processes that you go through to help you to move up that emotional scale, I will bring that up again because I'm stuck to it, because some people do ask, what's the emotional scale? So I'll just recap on that briefly. So you've got the emotional scale there. We've got joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, love at the top. At the bottom, we've got fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness, and everything in between. Actually, we'll just recap, because this is really important. Is you see there that anger is number 17. Just a very good tip with this work is that if you're feeling depressed, if you're full of grief, and I don't mean fresh grief necessarily, because fresh grief needs to be honoured and dealt with in its own way, but if you find yourself in that grief situation a couple of years down the line, even decades down the line for some people, getting angry about something moves you up the emotional scale. So it's employing processes to move you up, not from the bottom straight to the top, but incrementally up that list as you need to go. So back to reviewing those stages. So looking at your 4 areas of those life structures, having a look and saying, okay, relationship. When I did the work in part 1, when I started this work, I was maybe a 5, not really happy with my relationship. It was okay, but you know, it wasn't great. Maybe during this work that relationship fell away. Maybe you're on your own now. Maybe you're feeling worse, maybe you're feeling better, but reviewing how you feel about that life structure. Maybe you've met the partner of your dreams in between. That's something that happened to me. What's Fiona saying? Angry can be so good. Yeah, it absolutely can. It can also ruin your day, like it did for me 2 weeks ago. I got absolutely stark raving bonkers mad at some bureaucracy in the country I live in, but that's another story. But yeah, anger can be really good, especially if you're right low down there. In a relationship sense, it's important. Relationships, you know, we tend to think partner, boyfriend, wife, husband, whatever. Relationships is much broader than that. Relationships can be with your friends, it can be with your family, it can be with your spouse or your partner, it can be with your boss, it can be with your next door neighbour. It's a very broad spectrum, and in my opinion, actually relationships is probably the most important life structure. Health is obviously important because you want to be healthy, but relationships in terms of being in a good energetic space, relationships are very, very important, because if your relationships are not good, then that's lots and lots of input that you feel that's happening to you, that makes you feel bad. And as we've said in previous episodes, and I want to reiterate with this is not for people in a fresh grief process. This is for people down the line who feel like their lives are not going the way they should because they have this inner trauma still sitting there. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens because of you. So what you put out into the world, you will get back. So if your relationships aren't at 100%, if your relationships aren't as you want them to be, it's generally a reflection of yourself. Don't take that personally, because quite often, if you watch I think it was episode 2 weeks ago, I had an ex-boyfriend of mine from a very, very long time ago come and put derogatory comments on my video, and it was a bit of a shock out of the blue. But in hindsight, actually, when I stepped back and observed myself in this situation, it was actually a shedding away of old stuff that needed to happen. And I'm quite happy that it did, because now that chapter, even 20 years later, has now finally been closed. That's what I mean by observing yourself, stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Okay, so relationships very important. Finance obviously is important, but that kind of tends to come along when the other life structures are good. So but analysing those 4 structures, comparing where you are now to where you were when you started, and having a look at which ones need a little bit of extra attention, because there are processes you can do. If you've got my download, with the link for which is in the video description, there is a process of looking at positive aspects. And positive aspects can be quite tricky, because if it's a situation that's happening that you're not too happy about, it can be tricky to see the positive aspects of that situation. But in the handout, I've actually explained how you can pivot that situation, pivot how you feel about that situation, so that you can pull out the positive aspects of something that you actually probably feel there aren't any. There is a way to do it. And when you pull out the positive aspects, you find that the negative aspects just fall away. So do download that handout, and it shows you in there how to do that. We've got a comment from Fiona, what she's saying here. It's important to remember we're doing the best we can. Yeah, Fiona's saying it's always important to remember we're doing the best that we can with what we have. Some people are stuck. Exactly. That's a really important comment, actually, Fiona. Thank you for that. It's always important to basically give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up. People get stuck. People have excuse my French, people have shit days. I've had a few recently. It's fine. You move on to the next day and you try to do better the next day. Beating yourself up does no good for anyone. So if you are doing this work, and I'm guilty of this as well. You do the work, you do the energy work, you think, right, I'm doing my personal development on a daily basis for months and months and months, even years. When you have a bad day, you tend to feel guilty about it. You tend to feel, I'm putting out the wrong stuff in the universe. But it's fine. It's fine. Everything is okay. Everything will get better. And it's important, like as Fiona says, we're only doing the best that we can. And that's an important point. Thank you, Fiona. Okay. The next thing, before we get back to those atomic habits, is something called life visioning. Now, if you've followed the law of attraction in any kind of way, it's probably popped up in your newsfeed. I mean, it's growing and growing and growing because it basically works. Life visioning is something that's really, really important. Now, at the start of this process, you might not actually be in a situation to start envisioning a better life for yourself, because it's important just to take small steps in order to move up that emotional scale. But life visioning, once you start to feel the positive effects of this kind of work, once you start to incorporate this into your day, once you start to feel better and you start to feel those more positive emotions, when you start to see, you find £5 on the street or something like that, or you look down the back of the sofa and you find a few quid. These are positive things that start to happen when you start to do this work. You bump into a friend that you haven't seen for years and it results in some kind of delightful interaction. These are those positive things that start to happen from this work. And once you start seeing that, you can start visioning, you can start envisioning how you want your life to go. Because self-development, and I can't stress this enough, self-development is something that everybody should be doing on a daily basis. Because it's only self-development that will propel you towards a better life. And it's very easy to get stuck in your normal daily habits, and we'll get to atomic habits with that in a second. It's easy to get into your normal sort of daily drudge, day-by-day habits, and that doesn't take you anywhere. That doesn't lift you up. It doesn't give you the opportunities and the potential that you could possibly have by doing this self-development work. So life envisioning is basically, it's also called scripting. You may have heard it called scripting. You're basically imagining your best case scenario in a certain point in time, looking forward and saying, okay, by the end of this year, I'm going to have generated this much income. I'm going to have found my new dream job. I'm going to have found my new dream relationship. Whatever it might be that's important to you, because remember, this is only things that are important to you and nobody else. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what anybody else wants. This is your personal wants and desires. Scripting that, visioning that, imagining that, getting that down on paper. Now, some people say, oh, I could just type it on my computer. It's much better to write it down on a piece of paper, preferably in a lovely journal, so you can keep adding to it and refining it in as much detail as you can and envisioning how you want your life to be. It's really, really, really powerful work. It's really powerful work, and it does work. Believe me, it really, really does. Okay, back to those atomic habits. Now, as we said at the beginning, this is all about forming new habits. And as I said, it takes on average 66 days to form a new habit, depending on who you are and what's going on in your life and all the blah, 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 outside pressures. But basically, it's about building new structures, new techniques, new strategies into your daily life. Now, in my opinion, there are 5 important things to do on a daily basis. These are my 5. These are the things that I find really help to propel me forward. These might not be the same 5 for you. So as Fiona saying, I have atomic habits on my Audible. That's my next listen. I'm journaling with Nikki Piper's journal. Fantastic. I've got atomic habits on my Kindle, Fiona. So, and I'll get to that because it ties in. Okay, so my top 5 tips for daily habits, and we'll get to the atomic bits in a minute. My top 5 tips are the 5. Number 1 is to start your day with a glass of water. This might seem like, what? That's easy, but you'd be surprised how many people don't have a glass of water in the morning. And having a glass of water in the morning just wakes up your system. Now, a top tip is what I do is I always go to bed with a bottle of fresh water. I've got one of those SodaStream glass bottles, keep it by the bed, and the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I open the bottle and I have a drink. Normally, I know 250 mils, 300 mils, something like that. And I have found that by doing that on a daily basis is the first thing that clicks into my head when I wake up, and I'm actually thirsty when I wake up, so I have to do it. So I've trained myself to do it, and it's just the best thing ever. So that's habit number 1. Habit number 2 is some kind of meditational practice to do first thing in the morning, before you check Facebook, before you check the news, before you do anything, before even you brush your teeth. Or I do it before I brush my teeth because I just get up in the morning, I have a wee because I have to, and then I go back to bed, I sit and I meditate for 15 minutes. Now, if you don't want to meditate, if the meditation is not your thing, just some kind of meditative practice will be just as beneficial. So that could be something like you could do 15 minutes of yoga, you could do just 15 minutes of deep breathing, something that basically just focuses your mind first thing in the morning before all the chatter and the nonsense of the day has come in. Just 15 minutes. If 15 minutes sounds like too much for you, start with 5 and build it up slowly. But this kind of meditative practice, this kind of focusing first thing in the morning, just prepares your day. I mean, it just prepares you for whatever comes your way. I just cannot recommend it enough. Everybody should be doing it. We'd have a much better world if everybody did 15 minutes meditation in the morning. Okay, number 3 is reading. Now, you might think, Why would I read first thing in the morning? Well, you know, getting those motor neurons firing, getting the grey cells kind of firing first thing in the morning just sets you up for the day. Now, if you're not a big reader, if you're not someone who regularly reads, or you don't read quickly, I wouldn't start off with 20 minutes, because 20 minutes is the recommended reading time in the morning. I'd start off with 5 minutes. If you try and read 20 minutes, you might find you get a bit sleepy and fall asleep, because if you read quite slowly, it's actually very relaxing and you start to tail off. Also, don't read something that's boring. You want something that's going to, you know, get you energized and get you going. But 20 minutes reading in the morning after you've done your meditative practice is it just sets you up again for the day as well. Now, you might be thinking, well, I haven't got time to do that in the mornings. Well, you haven't got time not to meditate. That's something that I've heard a lot, I've taken on board. You don't have time not to meditate, because by meditating, you gave yourself more time. Oh, hi, Sammy. You're a bit late. We're just going through atomic habits. So that is my number 3, is to incorporate 20 minutes of reading. Now, this is one thing to incorporate during the daytime. This is my habit number 4, is a focused mealtime. Now, what do I mean by that? A focused mealtime. This is just one meal a day. I like to do it over breakfast, because breakfast is my favourite meal. I just really love it. I sit down, I take a lot of time for breakfast. But basically, it's just focusing on your food. It's appreciating everything about your food. And I don't just mean flavour and taste and texture and all that. I mean basically really appreciating down to the nth degree. You know, if you've got a jar of something, think about where the glass came from. Appreciate the person who made the glass. Appreciate the person who sits in a factory and puts that food in the glass. If it's, you know, if it's toast, appreciate the person who made the bread, the man who drove the delivery truck to get the flour to the factory, or whatever it is. Appreciating your food in that way, not only is it a focused exercise, but it just, you know, it brings in these amazing, wonderful feelings of appreciation into your life and into your mind. And appreciation is one of the most powerful things that's going to move you up the emotional scale quicker than anything else. So that focused mealtime is just, it's probably one of the, aside from meditation, it's one of the most important things to do on my list. And then once you've done that kind of appreciation work of, you know, all the things outside of your food that got your food to you, the supermarket, the people that work in the supermarket, the money that you have to buy the food, all that, then appreciate the taste and the smell and the texture, how it feels in your mouth, your body for digesting it, the things you can show appreciation for when you're eating are endless. It's just such a huge appreciation game that you can play, and one meal a day is not too much to ask for, I don't think. If you've got a meal break at work, or you've got your evening meal with your family, just very important. Number 5 is something that we covered in an exercise in part 2. So if you haven't watched part 2, please go back to that and go to the exercise that we did together. And that is the exercise of forgiveness. Now, I think forgiveness is one of the most important things that we can do. And again, to reiterate, this is not talking about fresh grief. We're talking about grief that's been ongoing for a number of years. And often we can get into these habits and these cycles of blame and shame and guilt. And it's through forgiveness that we can get ourselves out of these negative thought patterns. Now, the exercise that we went through is one of, it's kind of like an energy transference. So it's transferring love and love feelings onto the person that you're trying to forgive. Go back and have a look at it in part 2. But it's such a powerful exercise. And it is also in the handout that comes with the video. So do download that, and you've got that forgiveness exercise in there. And that's number 5. Okay, now that in relation to atomic habits is that if you want to, you know, let's say your normal day is you get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you go and have breakfast, you go to work, you come home, you put the TV on, you have dinner, you watch a bit more TV, and you go to bed. If that's your normal 24-hour schedule, if you wake up one morning and say, I'm going to incorporate these 5 habits into my day from now on, chances are you're probably not going to do it. It's too much of a leap. It's the same with the emotional scale. You can't get there down at grief, depression and fear up to love, empowerment and peace. You can't get there in one leap. So with atomic habits, what you're looking at is you're looking at incorporating, start off with perhaps drinking a glass of water in the morning, and just incorporate that into your life for a week. When you've done it for a week, pat yourself on the back, because you deserve to give yourself appreciation as often as possible, and then start to incorporate the second habit. And it's by incorporating these habits incrementally, atomically, so one small habit, increasing that after a certain period of time and building on that, which allows you to bring these habits successfully into your life. Because, you know, we all wake up with the intention on New Year's Day of saying, right, I'm going to hit the gym 3 times a week from now on, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to meditate every day, I'm going to hit all my goals, I'm gonna, and it never happens. So it's just by these incremental goals, these incremental atomic habits, that can help to propel you forward in a much more lasting way. Because, and this is really important, this work is not temporary. This work is to keep you going, to keep you uplifted for the rest of your life. Because it's like, you know, if you're an athlete and you're preparing for a race, let's see, we've got some comments coming through incrementally, but yes, exactly, a small changes. So if you're an adult, if you're an athlete and you're preparing for a race, let's say your race is in 6 months' time, at the beginning of this training period, you start and you train, and by the 3rd month, you're at peak fitness and you're ready to go. You don't stop training because you're ready for the race in 3 months' time. You program, you keep doing that training so that you're ready at exactly the right time. And that's exactly the same with this work. You're preparing the way, you're preparing the path, you're planting those seeds of joy and gratitude to take with you for the rest of your life. And this is really, you know, it's very, can't reiterate that enough, is that this is lifetime work. This is not just, I'm going to be happy for a week and my life's going to be amazing and I'm going to feel fantastic. This is day by day things to propel you for the rest of your life. And all you have to do is trust the process, because this works. What's Fiona said, this work is not yeah, exactly, it's not temporary. This is to keep you going forever and ever. That is basically it. So we've gone through these 4 stages, we've shown how to integrate it and to let it flow. And if you are interested in working with me, you can visit my website, thewellbeinggardener.com. Come along and have a look at what I'm up to. I have got a course coming up that's going to be starting in a couple of weeks' time, which basically expands on these 4 weeks of practices, and it's a 12-week course, and it's interactive. It's on, you know, it's with Zoom calls and Q&As and a club membership and all sorts of things. Come along to my website and have a look at that, and you can expand on this, and you can basically set yourself up in those 12 weeks for an amazing life, and to feel better, and to get rid of those feelings of grief, and to get rid of those feelings of depression and anxiety, and not to knee-jerk reaction and be angry to everything all the time. It's a way to plan your life to react to situations in a positive, practical and solution orientated way, instead of negative and just feeling crap all the time. So how good an advert is that? I don't want to feel crap all the time. So that's me. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for Sammy and Fiona for joining me here live. That's it. And I'm sure you will see me again on Brand Builders TV for something else that will come up. I haven't got anything planned at the moment, but keep your eyes open. And you can always follow me at my Facebook page, which is also The Wellbeing Gardener. I'm the Wellbeing_Gardener on Instagram, and Fiona there has very kindly put my website address into the comments. So have a great rest of your week and a great weekend, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!
I hope that you've enjoyed the show today as much as we've enjoyed making it for you. If you've got anything out of this episode, please do tell someone else how they can subscribe to the Brand Builders TV channel at youtube.com/brandbuilderstv. Why not join us at our next Brand Builders Thinkubator, a global mastermind that we run every week to take away the loneliness of being in business on your own. For more information and to book your place, visit light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. That's light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. Until next time, be the ripple that you wish to see in the world, and we'll see you soon.